Session 41, Part 1. Let's get inside our sun and around its creation. Let's begin. This session has a lot of mixed information from the sun that we're going to get into and the logos, of course, going to the creation and some small details about second density. We have fasting at the end of the session and also some information about our societal complex. So in this first part, we're going to explore just the sun, which is about half of the session, and everything that has to do with the creation and densities that we have been talking about. So it gives us a little bit more information to contribute to the model that we have in the Law of One, and some information about consciousness that I think is important, that Ra seems to emphasize a lot. So at the beginning of this session, I skipped the first 3 questions because these are personal stuff. I mean, when I say personal, it sounds like I'm, it's their personal stuff. It's just that it wasn't relevant to the overall Law of One content. And just to skip information, you can go read it if you want, in the books if you have them, or the lawofone.info, where the first 3 questions are, they're really about, Don was asking if they had to move to a different location. I think he said around 1,000 miles from the place, if that was going to affect the contact. And Ra simply said, it doesn't, because we're in the creation anyway. Like, we're not here, in Kentucky. We're everywhere. So it's not going to affect it. And also gave some instructions about how to prepare the place, which I actually think is interesting, the way Ra didn't say specific, but it gives us that impression that we all know that once we move to a place, we want to create that energy into the space that we want. And Julie, for example, she's really good at decorating and making the place really mellow and comfortable. Everywhere we go, she makes a really good environment. And everybody has their own touch and their own taste. You can see how how I am. This is my space. So everybody gives a little touch, and that makes you feel that you are, in a place that is sacred to you, or that is comfortable, that is nice. So that's the only takeaway that I can get from that. Ra did mention, paint any walls that you feel that are marred, or marred, like tainted or something like that. So I don't know, I guess that's just common sense for us. We want to make the place comfortable. And I think the other questions are just about, let me see, because I have them here. The banishing ritual, which is something that I'm not that familiar with, but it's a ritual where you draw a pentagram and you say a couple of chanting words and you move around. And I don't know if they used to do that at the beginning of each session. I believe they did, so that was part of it. Ra says yes. And then just Don confirming, if the move was fine, and all that stuff. So I skipped all that, and since we have a long session today and I want to cover as much as possible, which I think I'm going to stop in question 13. We'll see. We can go straight into first question. So this is question number 4 of session 41. Like I said, Don says, in trying to build an understanding from the start, you might say, starting with intelligent infinity and getting to our present condition of being, I'm having some difficulty, but I think I should go back and investigate our sun, since it is the sublogos that creates all that we experience in this particular planetary system. Will you give me a description of the sun, of our sun? Before I start, Ra's going to go and describe the sun, but I want to emphasize something, that the question is, can you give us a description of the sun? And it's important to know what Don is saying beforehand, because that's going to determine the response that Ra is going to give, or at least the direction in terms of description. Not that I expected any less from Ra, but of how thorough they are, in terms of explaining this. But see, the point of view from Don in this question is that, he wants to understand, like he wants to take a step back, I think he says. So yeah, I should go back and investigate our sun, since it is the sublogos that creates all that we experience in this particular planetary system. So he wants to take a step back, go to the sun, because that's the sublogos. Remember, the logos being the galactic logos. So the sublogos is creating everything. So he wants to know more about the sun. What does the sun do? And we're going to get some really good insights. So Ra is going to explain what the sun is in various aspects. So Ra starts and says, this is a query which is not easily answered in your language, for the sun has various aspects in relation to intelligent infinity, to intelligent energy, and to each density of each planet, as you call these spheres. Moreover, these differences extend into the metaphysical or time-space part of your creation. So that's a paragraph, and then the next one says, in relationship to intelligent infinity, the sun body is equally with all parts of the infinite creation, part of that infinity. So this is the context in which they're going to explain. They're going to say, first they say that it's difficult or it's not easily answered. I think we get a good answer here, so there's not much, hidden, enigmatic, mysterious, or impossible to explain, as sometimes it is, and I understand. But here I think they make a good job, to give us at least, the premise of how this works. But enough for us to satisfy our curiosity and, that itch to know how this works. So, see how they say, they have a relation to intelligent infinity, intelligent energy, to each density of each planet, and also the difference extend into the metaphysical. So they're going to talk about those four in the answer. And the first one is that they say, in relationship to intelligent infinity, the sun body is equally with all parts of the infinite creation, part of that infinity. So in essence, they're saying, listen, the sun is the same as the galactic logos or the grand central sun, or everything else in the galaxy. It's intelligent infinity. It's one. It's not different. It's the same. It's just a step down from the creation process, not a step down in terms of hierarchy, of superiority, or more or less kind of thing. It's just a hologram or a fractalized portion of the creation, just like a photon. Different photons exist everywhere, but photons are holograms of each other. So that's what they're saying, basically. In terms of intelligent infinity, it is one and the same with it. So with all parts of the creation. So in part of that infinity. So I mean, that's, to us, that's a little obvious that everything is infinity, but they're making that distinction there. So I don't blame them. Ra continues and says, in relationship to potentiated intelligent infinity, which makes use of intelligent energy, it is the offspring, shall we say, of the logos for a much larger number of sublogoi. That is, the galaxy, and the sublogoi would be every star in the galaxy. The relationship is hierarchical in that the sublogos uses the intelligent energy in ways set forth by the logos and uses its free will to co-create the, shall we say, full nuances of your densities as you experience them. In relationship to the densities, the sun body may physically, as you would say, be seen to be a large body of gaseous elements undergoing the processes of fusion and radiating heat and light. Okay, so now we have the other two or three. In relation to potentiated intelligent infinity is that, the word says this, is the potential that intelligent infinity allows, or not allows as it is a restriction, but the potential that intelligent infinity can give to the logos. It's that exchange between intelligent infinity and the logos here. The logos is a representation of intelligent infinity, just for practical purposes. Not, again, it's not an order per se, but it's just how it is. It's a representation of intelligent infinity in the physical universe, or in the creation. The creation is everything in the universe. The creation is just everything. It's not intelligent infinity. Intelligent infinity is it's impossible to describe, but intelligent infinity creates this universe. So everything else is just a manifestation of intelligent infinity and representations of it. So that's what they're saying, in terms of the potentiated intelligent infinity, which makes use of intelligent energy. See, because of the potentiated intelligent infinity makes use of intelligent energy. It's that exchange between intelligent infinity and the sun or the logos to use intelligent energy for the creation and for the sub-creations, as it is our planetary system. So the logos for a much large, okay, so that is the galaxy. The logos, when they say the logos for a much larger number of sublogoi, meaning the galaxy gives that. And I explained this in a video. If you haven't, go watch it, because I talked about the creation from a model that I have in my mind, and this is how I explain it too, how it goes, from the grand central sun to the galaxy's logo, and then to the sublogoi, which is the sun, the stars, every star in the galaxy, and so on. So that's what they're saying. It is the offspring of the logos, in this case, the galaxy. So the galaxy is the same. It's a big sun with instead of planets, it has stars. So it's the same thing. The relationship is hierarchical in that the sub-logos uses the intelligent energy in ways set forth by the logos. So it's hierarchical, again, not in terms of position in strata, but rather in the in its relationships to how the archetypes are managed. The archetypes are created by the grand central sun, and then are tinkered with and changed, and I don't want to say the word manipulated. In our philosophy, it sounds like the negative, but you know what I mean. It gets played with to create a different archetype or archetypal structure and handle to each star. So that's what they mean by hierarchical. That the sub-logos uses the intelligent energy in ways that basically the galaxy said, this is how we're going to do the creation here in this galaxy, and then the stars take this and say, okay, this is how I'm going to use it for this planetary system. That's pretty straightforward. Uses its free will, of course, to co-create the full nuances of your densities as you experience them. Right. So it creates the octave, basically, and says, okay, I want to play with these rules or these archetypes in a way that I can create this octave of experience. So that's another way to describe the sun. Then, in relationship to the densities, the sun body may physically, as you would say, be seen to be a large body of gaseous elements undergoing the processes of fusion and radiating heat and light. This sounds to me like how we see it scientifically. What kind of body it is physically. It's a body that is there, and that we and they say in all densities, I think, in relationship to the density. So they don't mention first, the third, where we're kind of stuck more in our perception in the physical rather than the metaphysical. So they say in all densities, it is still a place. It's still a body in which, not a place, but a body that exists there. And that makes sense, as we understand what the sun is, which we're going to explore, of course, in this session, at least in this part. So yeah, it's just gaseous elements undergoing the process of fusion and radiating heat and light, which is the process of the physical sun. And it also has some metaphysical implications here, but we're gonna get into metaphysical now as the next part of Ra's answer. And they say, metaphysically, the sun achieves a meaning to 4th through 7th density, according to the growing abilities of entities in these densities to grasp the living creation and co-entity or other self-nature of this sun body. Thus, by the 6th density, the sun may be visited and inhabited by those dwelling in time-space, and may even be partially created from moment to moment by the processes of 6th density entities in their evolution. So we have here really cool stuff about what the sun is metaphysically. So remember, metaphysically is time-space, and this is how we can use the sun. There's a couple of things that I can take from here. The first one, they say, they mention 4th through 7 because that's where in time-space you have the possibility of communicating better with the sun. I know Ra mentioned this. I don't know if they said it in this session or in another session, but there is an interaction with the sun that from 4th through 6th, as you progress in densities, you have a better understanding of the sun, and that is an information exchange that you can have with it, or a relationship, let's call it, with the sun. So that's where they're saying, from 4th through 7, according to the growing abilities of the entities in these densities to grasp the living creation and co-entity or other self-nature of this sun body. So see, these words are really cool because they say, first, the abilities of entities in the densities to grasp the living creation as they get closer to the sun, which is the source of our creation. It is the representation of intelligent infinity here. As we get closer, we get a higher understanding of how the sun works and how the creation works in terms of the living creation, like they say. And co-entity, because we are co-entities with the sun, or other self, because the sun is another self too. Or this can even be applied to me and you, or to Ra and other social memory complexes, or Jupiter, or I don't know, an asteroid in the asteroid belt, whatever. Other self is everything. Nature of this sun body, okay. So we get closer to that. Now, the other cool part is that they say, by 6th density, the sun may be visited and inhabited by those dwelling in time-space, and may even be partially created from moment to moment by the processes of 6th density entities in their evolution. So we're gonna get into more information about this soon. But first, in 6th density, the sun may be visited and inhabited by those dwelling in time-space. So there is time-space and space-time in 6th density. Those in time-space can go and live there as they are discarnate, I guess. They're not incarnated, which is a very subtle distinction in 6th density, as Kuo mentioned in one of the channelings. I believe this was 2016. There's a very small distinction. As we get closer to 7th density, the difference between space-time and time-space becomes thinner. So you're almost like one and the same in space-time and time-space as you're incarnate. This happens also in 4th density. There's a very cool channeling by Kuo where they say how our relationship, for us, like meditating or sleeping, it's that deep connection that we need with metaphysical, with time-space, that metaphysical side of us. In 4th density, meditating is almost like constant, like you're living in a meditative state. In 5th density is it's almost, I forgot what they said, but it's like you don't require to, it's almost like a switch, that you really go into that deep meditation. And I think they say it's like a lucid dream, that you are living the creation in that way. That much of you is within the creation to shape it in the way that you want, because it's all perception and consciousness. And in 6th density, it's the work is so similar that I think Kuo says that it's almost like taking a break from work. That meditating there or sleeping, which is the same thing, it's like taking a break from work. And they even say that some of our monks, they don't say monks, but some of our disciplines here, or people that follow disciplines here, they can meditate to a point where they don't really need to sleep. And that's because they are so in tune with the metaphysical nature of reality that sleeping is doing the same thing. That's why we need, a lot of sleep and all that stuff. And some people even say that you don't need that much sleep if you're so in tune, with your metaphysical side. I don't know how true that is, but it kind of makes sense. So in any case, I'm digressing here. The point is that in 6th density, we're so close to that. In time-space, remember, they don't say space-time, they say in time-space, that you can go live there in the sun. So basically 6 density beings in time-space are living in the sun. And they say that partially they can create from moment to moment by the process of 6 density entities in their evolution, which we're going to get into. That would be the next question, and let's go to it. Don says, question 5. In your last statement, did you mean that the 6 density entities are actually creating the manifestation of the sun in their density? Could you explain what you meant by that? It's a really good follow-up question. I love it. So Ra says, in this density, some entities whose means of reproduction is fusion may choose to perform this portion of experience as part of the beingness of the sun body. Thus, you may think of portions of the light that you receive as offspring of the generative expression of 6 density love. So, how... It doesn't get more beautiful than this. Come on, really. Like, the sun is out right now. That's the light that I'm getting in at this moment. The sun is inhabited by the 6 density beings, and I just love it. You know, the means of reproduction in 6 density for the entities there is fusion. Whose means of reproduction is fusion? I don't know if there are different means of reproduction, but one of them seems to be fusion. They may choose to perform this portion of experience as part of the beingness of the sun body. So they have to have a very similar reaction or relationship with the sun, so that the processes that are happening in consciousness in the sun actually, this is not just a physical, you know, hydrogen fusion that is happening where helium is created and light is light and energy is, although it's part of the process, of course, I would say is a byproduct of the love fusion that happens in the sun. You know, all that sex, all the solar orgy that is happening there. You know, that's a byproduct. You know, it's you can see it as the offspring. I think that's awesome how they say. Thus, you may think of portions of the light that you receive as offspring of the generative expression of 6 density love. I mean, imagine that. Like this is a great way to tell your boyfriend, your girlfriend, your husband, your wife, or your partner, whatever, you know, let's make 6 density love. Let's expand our consciousness. I might even make a meme of that. Let's expand our consciousness so much that we can do 6 density love in the sun. Come on, that should be like a card too, you know, a card, you know, for happy anniversary or something like that. I love it. But yeah, that's what they mean. You know, it's portions of the light that we receive. So next time you are taking some sunlight, just think about that. You know, you're getting the offspring. This is children of the sun that are coming through these photons and into our body, and all the spectrum of light that we receive. So it's just beautiful. So let's go into the next question. Orgasmic. So Don says, then could you say that 6 density entities are using the mechanism to be more closely co-creators with the infinite creator? Ra says, this is precisely correct, as seen in the latter portions of 6 density, seeking the experiences of the gateway density. So you can see how, again, you know, going back to that explanation that I gave about how we get closer and closer to the creation as we move in densities. And at this point where they say, where Don is asking, of course, you know, if they're using this mechanism to become more closer to the creator in this way. I think that's what Don said. Am I putting words in his mouth? Co-creators with the infinite creator. Yeah, to be more closely, you know, basically be closer to the creator. And yeah, so Ra just says in different words, this is precisely correct, as seen in the latter portion of 6 density, which is seeking the gateway to intelligent infinity, which is 7 density. And that's what they say, seeking the experiences of the gateway density, which is 7 density. And yeah, there's not much to say there. Alright, so Don says in the next one, thank you. What I want to do now is investigate, as the first density is formed, what happens and how energy centers are first formed in beings. Let me first ask you, Does it make any sense to ask you if the sun itself has a density, or is it all densities? It's a good question. Ra says the sub-logos is of the entire octave and is not that entity which experiences the learning teachings of entities such as yourselves. So again, the sub-logos is of the entire octave, meaning that the sun is the whole creation, and its only difference is in the archetypal structure that it decided for this creation to be unique in the universe, or this universe be unique in the creation. Words are already kind of difficult when we're talking about holographic expressions of the same creation or the same creator, you know? So that's why it becomes kind of meaningless to use words to describe the creation in its multiplicity or infinite multiplicity. So in any case, what Ra is saying is that the sub-logos is of the entire octave, and it's not that entity which experiences the learned teachings like ourselves. We are the entities. In the video that I mentioned, go watch it again if you're interested in this stuff, because I went for almost 40 minutes talking about the creation, the way I see it, and overlapping it with science, astrophysics, and just science in general, conventional science that knows the Big Bang, and so on. So, what did I say? I mentioned that you see, from the grand celestial sun, we don't have entities experiencing per se. That comes in the octave of experience when we have the densities, because the densities are created for experiences to happen, where we have the veil and we have a progression and all that stuff for separate portions of, say, the creator. But you can see the step down process to make a creation in the universe this way. The grand central sun infinitely divides itself into galaxies. These galaxies possess the intelligence of the grand central sun, which is the major logos. I forgot what Ra mentions it. They call it a logos. But again, words are hard to describe this, but let's just call it the main logos, the boss, the boss logos. These archetypes are spread out across the same archetypes, again, across the galaxies, and the galaxies, each of them play with them and say, okay, I'm going to move it this way, like a Rubik's Cube, I think it's called. You move it in different ways and you create different archetypes and say, the same archetypes move in different ways and say, okay, this is going to be my creation and all the stars are going to have this. But with free will, of course, to modify them. Each sun will do the same, and then the octave is created. The octave is created in each star. So then we have, okay, the planes of existence. These are the planes of existence where intelligent energy will form and make entities from fire, air, water, earth, all the way up to 7 density entities who are now unifying again with the creator. All of that process is to have experiences. So these are the entities that are having the experience. Us. We came from fire, and we're still fire, air, water, and earth. And we will continue to be now, as we progress in densities, light beings. Light beings because we are lighter in the densities. And that's just how we progress. That's just how, we planned it. So we are the entities. But the logos, or the sub-logos, the sun here, is not of the creation. It is of the entire octave, because it is the projection of the octave. So I hope that makes sense. We are the sun. We are all the sun, basically. We're just tiny fractions of the sun experiencing itself, and the sun itself is the galaxy, and the galaxy is itself the creation. The whole deal. So next question. Don says, I'm going to make a statement of my understanding, and if you will correct me. I intuitively see the first density being formed by an energy center that is a vortex. This vortex then causes these spinning motions that I have mentioned before of the light, vibration, which is light, which then starts to condense into the materials of the first density. Is this correct? This is a beautiful question, actually. The first density being formed by an energy center that is a vortex. I think we're gonna see some flaw in Don's thinking a little bit, but this is pretty cool. Ross says this is correct as far as your reasoning has taken you. However, it is well to point out that the logos has the plan of all the densities of the octave in potential completion before entering the space-time continuum in the first density. Thus, the energy centers exist before they are manifest. Man, we need some really awesome visualization here for this to happen. And again, this is in part why I created the video that I just posted talking about this, because I was meditating or reflecting on this rather, and I really enjoyed the visualization that I had. So Don's question is, he's going from a very narrow perspective, not of course, no offense. It's just, from a very localized, rather, not narrow, but localized, that sounds better. Localized perspective of saying that, he sees the first density as a vortex, and from that vortex, then causes spinning motions that I have mentioned, light, which starts to condense into materials of the first density. This is true. It is true because everything is a vortex. Even a photon is a vortex. So, as far as his reasoning has taken him, Ross says. So cute. So, however, it is well to point out that the logos has the plan of all densities. So, let me explain this part. The potential of, did they say potential? Yeah, in potential completion. Now, I want you to see the octave express and as a prism, right? A prism of light. All densities, from red to violet. Those are the densities. And I want you to create a matrix in that visualization. You can see the prism of the light coming from white light to the prism. Those are the 7 densities, the octave. And in that octave, put a matrix on it, like a bunch of squares or ones and zeros, whatever you want. All the potentials are there from the beginning, meaning that that matrix, which is like a piece of paper that you put on top of all these colors, right? That is the potential in which intelligent energy can follow different paths. From red, which is first density, orange, second density, and so on. There are different potentials. And all of them, like they say, it is well to point out that the logos, the sun, has the plan of all the densities of the octave, okay, has the matrix created in potential completion before entering the space-time continuum in first density. So before anything is manifested in the physical universe, the logos already created a matrix, if you will, for all the densities in which all the potentials are there. Thus the energy centers exist before they are manifest, because the energy centers exist because they're part of the matrix. In the matrix of, say, our chakras have been here. It's just that we as entities haven't activated them in the way that we do. And this is why no matter what decision you make in your life, oh, did I do something wrong? Did I do something right? Did I do whatever, good or bad? It doesn't matter. You're doing something unique that nobody else will do in the universe, because you are very unique in the sense that you are the only one following this specific path from the beginning of creation to the end. So no matter how you do it, and that's why Ra emphasizes, like, relax, you're following the perfect path, because all paths lead to the Creator. So you are a perfect path. Whatever distinction you have in your path it's just what it is. This is also why you can overlap all this stuff with Zen Buddhism or Hinduism in general, where you shouldn't have, or Taoism is much more emphasized in this too, that leave things to the course of nature. Things are. There is no judgment. There is no definite truth. Nobody can say within the illusion that something is real. I mean, that's nonsense. But that requires a different thinking, and I know in Western society we're not used to that. But that is how it is. And, here from a sophisticated standpoint, from, metaphysical and esoteric knowledge, we can get the same concept, the same idea. Jesus used to say this too. I mean, this is why I say that the law of one it's for people who resonate with it, because it's rather complex, but it's a beautiful model, just like any other tradition of understanding consciousness. And in this way, we can see that all paths are already created. It is our decision to how to traverse it. So, I hope that makes sense. If not, leave me a comment. I love expanding on this, and any questions, of course. I love to get to them. So, Don continues and says, then, what is the simplest being that is manifested? I'm supposing it might be a single cell or something like that. And how does it function with respect to energy centers? I'm going to respond and then get to or follow Ra's answer, actually, and then interpret myself something. Ra says, the simplest manifest being is light, or what you have called the photon. In relationship to energy centers, it may be seen to be the center or foundation of all articulated energy fields. So, first, Don says, Don is going into, like which entities, this is, scientific views of reality, of course. I'm supposing it may be a single cell, yes, and does it function with respect to energy centers? He wants to know, like, how energy centers are related to different entities, beings, so, I mean, energy centers to entities. And Ra says the simplest manifest being is light, or what we call the photon. Why? Because this is the foundation of everything. Light is the foundation of the whole creation. Quantum physics knows this, and we know everything is energy, and energy is light. So, in relationship to the photon being, the basic particle, I talked about this again in this video. In relationship to energy centers, it may be seen to be the center or foundation of all articulated energy fields. Let's put it this way, if the photon is the simplest being, then its relationship to the energy fields are inherent in it. So that's why it's the foundation of all articulated energy fields. And everything is light. I mean, there's not much to say here other than, the relationship between the photon and the energy fields or energy centers is, it's inherent in it. So I know Don wanted to know, and you'll see how, Don keeps going into his reasoning, because this is, this is not what he wanted. So we'll go to that, which again has beautiful information as always. Don says, when first densities form, we have fire, air, earth, and water. There is at some time the first movement or individuation of life into a portion of consciousness, that is, self-mobile. Could you describe the process of the creation of this and what type of energy center that it has? So, this is where Don wanted to go, sentient life, second density forms. So Ra says, the first or red ray density, though attracted towards growth, is not in the proper vibration for those conditions conducive to what you may call the spark of awareness. As the vibratory energies move from red to orange, the vibratory environment is such that as to stimulate those chemical substances, which lately had been inert, to combine in such a fashion that love and light begin the function of growth. So let's put some context into this and we'll keep reading. So Ra is basically saying, the first or red ray density, the first density in general, is not in the proper vibration for those conditions of the spark of awareness. Awareness is that of movement and growth. That is where, what we call inert matter. Where do they say that? Substances. What we call inert matter is just there. Water is flowing. Earth is just sitting there. Fire is it's energy actually. It's just not just fire. The sun is fire, and air is just flowing too. But what's happening that the coal, though attracted towards growth, the beginning part of the statement is important. Though attracted towards growth, is not of the proper vibrations conducive to what we call awareness. But in that attraction to growth, they start to become mobile, let's say. That attraction to growth is the same one as we pull ourselves in consciousness. We see ourselves as beings in need of survival, then in need of identification, then in need of social cohesion, and then in terms of unconditional love. And that's how we are attracted to growth, but in a metaphysical sense. Matter is attracted to growth in the same way. So that's what starts forming, and they say as the vibratory energies move from red to orange, these vibratory energies are referring to once the planet has formed and all the matter is there, all the first density planet is formed. Let's call it, it wouldn't be properly called harvest, but it's the first, let's call it harvest just for consistency. The transition of vibratory energies move from red to orange. That means that that band of red the planet crosses to orange. Now the vibratory environment that the sun is providing to the planet is to move and grow. That is where matter starts moving and growing. That's DNA. That is the beginning, and that is the missing link between the inert matter and molecules, organic molecules that can be replicated in the laboratory, but they don't have, if left long enough, of course, they would, if they have, the ability to grow. And there's so much research on this too. Russians did amazing research on this, but I digress. The point is that once we get into that environment, the planet gets into that environment of growth, then matter will become alive, basically. That's what they say. Vibratory environment is such as to stimulate those chemical substances, organic molecules, which lately had been inert, just sitting there, to combine in such a fashion that love and light begin to function of growth. So, you see, most growth or anything is attracted to light. So that is love, light. And it will combine, as we know, that is the foundation of all life, DNA. And, that's how it goes. From there, we just have the multiplicity of what we have. So let's keep going. Ross says, the supposition which you had earlier made concerning single-cell entities, such as the polymorphous dinoflagellate, is correct. The mechanism is one of the attraction of upward spiraling light. There is nothing random about this or any portion of evolution. So, alright, so the supposition which concerning single-cell entities, yes, that's what Don wanted to get into, single-cell entities, but see how Ra went from, the photon to matter to basically DNA, even though they don't say it, but that's the combination and movement to growth, and then to single-cell entities as the polymorphous dinoflagellate, which is a tiny little thing that exists still here in our planet, is correct. The mechanism is one of the attraction of upward spiraling light. That's the mechanism. The mechanism is just growing, physically first and then metaphysically. There's nothing random about this or any portion of evolution. Evolution is just a path, like I said, in the matrix, through the densities. What path does it take? That depends on, the rules set forth by the logos, which is, all those little square things or binary systems that we can have and code life. So it depends on that. And, there's nothing random about it. Random evolution, sure. For our limited mind, of course. So, next question, Don says, as I remember, the polymorphous dinoflagellate has an iron rather than a copper-based cell. Could you comment on that? Ross says, this information is not central. Well, they didn't say it that way, but I like to say it. This information is not central. The base of any metabolism, shall we say, is that which may be found in the chemical substances of the neighborhood of origin. So this is pretty simple. Don is saying, I think, what do they say? It's iron cell. They say that it has an iron rather than a copper base cell. I think my biology fails here, but I think copper cells are what we have and plants too, or I'm not sure if it's plants and we have iron base. Yeah, because we have iron in our blood. So yeah, there is I think the distinction here, because the dinoflagellate, again, it's just a quick read that I had. It's I don't know if it's between. It's a form of plankton, I think. So it's plant, but it has like an iron base. So is it an animal? Is it a plant? And this is a question that always puzzles, a lot of scientists. Like, well, we don't know if this is a plant or not. Are fungi plants, or are there animals? They're closer to animals, but they're still in the kingdom of, they look like plants. It's just trying to put things into boxes. We like to do that. Whereas it's a lot easier to just say, I have no idea what that is. It's a pretty honest, thing. I mean, to get and explore it, that's cool. To have diversity and know like, oh, look how different these things are, and we can explore it. But to have boxes and say like things need to fit these boxes, and then another box just comes out and says like, wow, here I am, a platypus. And they're like, what the hell? Where do I put you, platypus? So you see, there's a lot of thinking here. In any case, the copper base cell is, I think, because they're supposed to be plants, but the dinoflagella has an iron, which is like animals. So Ross says, first of all, it's like, listen, man, this is not really important, but the base of any metabolism will be, what it finds in its environment. I mean, we have a saying in English, in Spanish, where they say, if from the sky you get lemons, then learn to make lemonade. Like you use whatever it's given to you. And, in terms of the environment, you use whatever's in the environment, so we adapt to that. So it's not central. All right, so Don is going to continue on this and say, I was just commenting on this because this indicates that it has the motion of our animal life with copper-based cells. Oh, there you go. Yet it has the iron-based cell of plant life, indicating a transition. I think that's reversed. Copper-based cell, animal life, maybe not. Indicating a transition from possibly plant to animal life. Am I wrong? My memory's a little fussy on this. So maybe I got it wrong. Reversed. So Ross says, it is not that you are incorrect, but that no conclusions should be drawn from such information. There are several different types of bases for conscious entities, not only upon this planetary sphere, but to a much greater extent in the forms found in planetary spheres of other sublogoi. The chemical vehicle is that which most conveniently houses the consciousness. The functioning of consciousness is the item of interest rather than the chemical makeup of a physical vehicle. Oh my god, this is so perfect. Like, this is, again, nothing against, and like Rod, this is why I resonate so much with the law of one. You see, we can get fixated in the complexity of things and boxes. Are you an animal or are you a human? Are you a monkey or are you a turtle? Do you come from plants? Do you feel more associated with this? I mean, all of this stuff is naturally something that we're interested in, and there's nothing wrong with it. It's just that we put so much energy and emphasis to all of this stuff. Ask our Western society, who is obsessed with boxes, like I said, science, empirical evidence, not subjective. And Ra is saying, like, first of all, and I love how they say it, there are several different types of vehicles, basically, bases for consciousness entities. Consciousness will inhabit whatever there is. Air, water, a combination of the two, or the four, or the three, it doesn't matter. Consciousness is everywhere. And where it decides to, again, that's why they say it's beautiful, but a much greater extent, not only in this planet that consciousness is going to inhabit, whatever it finds in terms of chemical substances, but also in other planetary spheres of other sublogoi, meaning that every other planet, like we explore, they create their own type of environment. They want more of whatever. Say Sirius, we just explored that Sirius had a third density beings that came out from plants. So how cool that might be, water planets. It's just all water, or mostly earth, or all earth and just rivers and stuff. Who knows what kind of animals and plants or beings are there. it's consciousness in general. It doesn't matter, because wherever you see, you just see consciousness. You see yourself reflected in that. And that's why the universe is so beautiful. This also scratches an itch that I've had, all my life, of course, as a science boy, thinking about the possibility, saying, well, if there is, because, science is all grim and dark and saying, like, we don't know if there is any more life in other planets. We may be the only one in the whole universe. It's so cute. We may be the only ones. The whole universe, this whole universe, we're the first ones to open our eyes because we can't prove it. I mean, never mind that it's almost like, oh my God, it's so limited. It really is. And I'm not bashing anybody, of course. It's just the views are so limiting. And actually, it's a beautiful thing to have that limited view. It's just, it's awesome, because once you break out of that, you are in such a paradise. Cosmic paradise. Sounds like a good name for a song. A techno song. Cosmic paradise. So, it scratches my itch from wanting to know if there is life in other planets. Are there humans? Are they humans, or are they animals, or how are they? Well, the answer is infinite. All types of beings. But in any case, I get sidetracked here. Ross says the chemical vehicle is that which most conveniently houses consciousness. So yeah, whatever is convenient in the environment for consciousness to inhabit it, it will do it. The functioning of consciousness is the item of interest rather than the chemical makeup of a physical vehicle. We shouldn't care so much about the details and nuances about the chemical vehicles of every single life organism until at least we know ourselves. Consciousness. Do we know about consciousness? I recently had an encounter which it's made me realize how blind I was in the past in terms of consciousness. And I won't get into that. That's probably not relevant. So let's keep going. But we can get really lost in science. We can get really lost there, and it becomes our religion. Let me just say this. Coming from an anecdotal perspective, remembering who I was or what I was, you can get science as a religion, because once you resign or completely obviate spirituality, you have a need for spirituality. Is something that's going to get inside of you no matter what, and you're going to get attributed to something. It's like saying, if you think there is a God, that's a concept. If you think there is no God, that's a concept too. So, in the same way, when you say, like, I follow no spirituality, no religion, but you have to fill those voids as to, who am I? What is this place? And you're going to fill it up with science. So science becomes your religion or your spirituality, depending on how you see it. And that's the kind of encounter I had recently with somebody on the internet, which was just a reminder of how I used to think, and how they believe and they feel affected, if you challenge anything about their religion, science religion, which is sad. And I know it's sad because I came from there. So, all right, last question I'm going to cover today, because the following one is going to be so interesting, and we're getting very close on the time here. Don says, I didn't mean to waste time with that question. Aw, don't you love Don? Let's give him all a hug. Let's all hug Don here. But you just happened to mention that particular single cell. Does this polymorphous dinoflagellate then have an orange energy center? And Ross says this is correct. And I'll only give you a little bit of details on this, because Don is asking, this is going to go into the next question, which is kind of long. And it has so much content that I want to do it in part 2 of this session. But Don is asking about the orange center, if it has an orange center. And it's true, it does. We'll get into that. It has all energy centers, actually. It traverses all energy centers. But it doesn't have them all activated. And that's the key thing. Animals don't have those activated. At least not. Some others are in potential activation, depending on where they are in their realization of self. But let's not get into that. So that's it. That's all I got for this first part. Like I said, the next part we're going to go into the following question. Question number 14. and that's going to do. It's going to have to do with a lot of our societal complex, our society in general, and how our consciousness is. It's kind of. It's backwards literally. We'll see why. You'll wait. Next week we'll get into that. So, conclusions. We explored a couple of things that are really important, and for practical sense, I want to talk about the creation itself and consciousness. Those are the two things that are really important to me. First, if you're here, you're definitely interested in these little things about the creation from the metaphysical point of view and also from the physical, because the law of one seems to attract those who are science-oriented and who have an itch for a metaphysical understanding, or even, reverse too. People who have a very strong metaphysical formation and they love to see the marriage with the physical universe that we know and our modern science tries to understand. So, what do we have? We have a creation that is set to have been created already. The potential is there. It's not like this is the divine plan, the divine matrix. This is the divine matrix. All potentials are there from the beginning. Before first density, the matrix has been created. And it's not to say like, oh, my life is... See, this is the beauty of free will seen from this perspective. Take a look at this. People may say like, oh, well, if my free will is not... because a lot of people get into free will and they say, well, it's not like I have free will to do whatever I want. It's free will of decision making, and that's boring and so on. But they're seeing everything backwards, because your free will being of decision changes your reality from perception rather than from the physical. You're not working from the outside in, you're working from the inside out. So free will, as it is explained literally what it is, which is a decision making. In this path, you can see that as perception is change, your path in the matrix is change. So say you decide, you say like, oh, I lost my life, I don't know, I've spent 25 master cycles in third density trying to polarize, and I finally polarized towards the negative, and I went into fourth density and fifth density, and then I realized that I was positive, so I went back to fourth density. It doesn't matter what path you take within the matrix, you're gonna end up at the end in the infinite creator. And of course, I'm drawing like a very chaotic and just out of my mind, type of example here of an entity going 25 master cycles. Oh my god, it's a lot. I hope nobody has gone through that. Or if not, who cares? Why not? Infinite time. So I'm so stupid. So it doesn't matter. What matters is your perception. And your free will decides what type of perception you have. So this is why, while everything is there is no like cosmic plan. Oh, I have everything written down for me too before I came into this incarnation. No, we got rid of that when we talked about catalyst programming. We know that it's not like we come here and we're like subservient to the oversoul. What's the other word? Oh my god. The higher self. We're not subservient to it. In fact, we wish, we were, because our higher self is always giving us the right information. We have free will, right? And all the government, or my boyfriend, or my neighbor, or my car broke down, or I'm not the rock star, or whatever it is, that we deviate from our higher self, just face palming. In any case, this is a way to relax. This is a good information to relax and say, okay, everything is fine, no matter what I do. It's really conscious. Oh, and the other part is consciousness, of course. We are that portion of consciousness. If we want to see more of the creation, rather, it's not like, we want the direct path to enlightenment. No, why care about enlightenment? Enlightenment is just fun, because the more you know, the more, you enjoy this life. So it's not needed. You don't need to provide enlightenment to anybody, much less to yourself, unless you really dig it. If you dig it, then the information is there. But in any case, that's consciousness. We are that portion of consciousness exploring itself, And the end product is just being one with the creation. It's that simple. It's knowing who we are. So with that, I come to the end of this first part, session 41. Like I said, part 2 of session 41 is going to cover that part of our societal structure, our consciousness again, and more about other stuff. Fasting, I think it's also involved there, and some other questions, random stuff. So thank you so much for watching this video. As always, I appreciate you leaving any comments. Like, share it, subscribe, you know, the whole deal, to make the channel grow even more for those people who are interested, of course, and who really dig this Law of One material. So with that, again, thank you, love you, see you next time.